His laughter echoed on the quiet street, a cruel sound directed at a tearful little girl. To this officer, her claim was absurd. A mother in the elite special forces? He thought it was a fantasy, the desperate lie of a scared child. He saw a little girl who needed to be taught a lesson about making up stories. What he didn't see was the storm that was about to break. He had no idea that the woman he was dismissing was about to walk onto the scene and turn his entire world upside down. 10-year-old Maya lived in a world painted by the stories of her mother, Sergeant Lena Thorne. While other kids' moms baked cookies or drove minivans, Maya's mother jumped out of airplanes and spoke in codes. Lena was a ghost, a decorated operator in the nation's most elite special forces unit, often gone for months with no contact. Maya's only connection to her was a worn silver compass Lena had given her, its needle always pointing north. "So you never feel lost," she'd said. That afternoon, the sun was warm, and the neighborhood felt safe, just like any other day. Maya was walking the 2 blocks home from the library, her backpack filled with books about heroes and a drawing she'd made for career day, a woman in combat gear standing tall. She clutched the silver compass in her pocket, the cool metal a comforting weight against her palm. But as she turned the corner onto her street, she saw it. A police cruiser, parked silently by the curb. The officer inside wasn't looking at his phone or doing paperwork, he was watching her. And in his eyes there was a coldness that made the quiet street feel suddenly dangerous. The officer stepped out of his car, the door clicking shut with a sound that felt final. He was a large man, and his shadow fell over Maya, blotting out the warm sun. "You look a little lost, kid," he said, but his tone wasn't helpful. It was an accusation. "This is a quiet neighborhood. We don't get many visitors." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. This was her street. Her home was just a few houses away. "I'm not lost," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I live right there." She pointed, but the officer's eyes remained fixed on her, cold and unconvinced. He began to question her, his words a relentless series of sharp, pointed doubts. "Where are your parents? Why are you alone? What's in the backpack?" Every answer she gave was met with a cynical smirk. He saw her worn jeans and her simple t-shirt and made a judgment. In his mind, she didn't belong here. Fear began to curdle into anger inside her chest. When he asked what her parents did for a living, she stood up a little straighter. "My mom is in the Special Forces," she said, a note of pride cutting through her fear. That's when he laughed. It wasn't a small chuckle, it was a loud, booming laugh that made Maya flinch. "Special Forces? That's a good one, kid, a real fairy tale." He leaned in closer, his voice dripping with condescending amusement. "Let me guess, she's a secret agent too. Does she fly invisible jets?" He saw the tears welling in Maya's eyes, and his smirk widened. He was enjoying this, enjoying the power he held over this small, scared girl and her ridiculous story. He had decided she was a liar, a troublemaker from another part of town. As he reached for his radio to call it in, Maya clutched the silver compass in her pocket, its sharp edges digging into her palm. She squeezed her eyes shut, wishing her mom was there. That's when she felt it first, a low, deep vibration in the soles of her shoes, a rhythmic thumping that was growing steadily louder. It wasn't a car, it was something in the air. The thumping in the air intensified, growing from a distant pulse to a deafening roar that shook the very ground. The officer's smug expression faltered, replaced with confusion as he scanned the empty blue sky. Then it appeared. Not a newshopper or a police helicopter, but a matte black military aircraft, a Black Hawk, descending with terrifying speed and precision. It hovered directly over the street, its powerful downdraft kicking up leaves and dust, whipping Maya's hair across her face. Neighbors poured out of their houses, staring in disbelief. The officer stood frozen, his hand halfway to his radio, his authority vanishing into the swirling wind. A thick rope dropped from the helicopter's open door, and a figure in full tactical gear rappooned down, landing silently on the asphalt with the coiled grace of a predator. The figure straightened up, removed their helmet, and the officer's world tilted on its axis. It was a woman, a black woman with eyes as hard as steel and a gaze that cut right through him. She walked towards them, her every step radiating an unshakable and dangerous authority that made his uniform feel like a cheap costume. She stopped directly in front of him, her shadow now eclipsing his. She ignored the officer completely, her eyes softening only when she looked at her daughter. Then she turned her gaze back to the stunned policeman. Her voice was quiet, calm, and colder than ice. "You are speaking to my daughter." The officer didn't say a word. He couldn't. His authority, his assumptions, and his laughter were all crushed into silence under the weight of the reality standing before him. Lena Thorne never raised her voice. She didn't have to. She simply took Maya's hand, gave the officer one last lingering look that stripped him of his badge and his pride, and walked her daughter home. As the door to their house closed, the Black Hawk ascended into the sky and vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the street in a silence more profound than the noise that had filled it. That day, Maya learned two things. She learned that her mother was everything she imagined, a hero, powerful and real. But she also learned a lesson that no child should have to, that to some people, her truth would always sound like a lie. Her word, her existence was not enough. It took a helicopter, a uniform, and an undeniable display of power to make a man believe a 10-year-old girl who was simply walking home.